One of the biggest things I see fans complaining about of the television series is that most of the characters don't seem to have any sort of consequence for their actions. Whereas earlier on in the series, every single time a good character made a decision that may come back to bite them in the ass, it did in fact do just that. Remember when Ned decided to do what's right for the Seven Kingdoms and call out Cersei for sleeping with her brother, which in fact would make Joffrey an illegitimate king? Well, that resulted in Ned losing his head. And then more recently in season 5, when Jon Snow decided to bring the wildlings south of the wall because they are people and they are just like the rest of the folks in the north, well, this resulted in him being stabbed repeatedly and left for dead out in the cold. In this video, I want to discuss how some of our favorite main characters may in fact get some of those consequences from decisions they made in their past, and that may end up resulting in their death. I also want to discuss an intense leaked scene involving the Battle of Winterfell. Now, these leaks are to be taken with a grain of salt and are more or less for strictly entertainment purposes, but nonetheless, here's your sign and let's begin. Before we get started, please slap a like on this video, as the like goal is going to be 1,420. Also, make sure you're subscribed, and then this is the most important part. Make sure you have your notifications turned on so that way you get alerted every single time I drop a Game of Thrones video throughout this long night. Now, you know what? Just to sort of make things a little bit different for this video, I'm going to actually start out with the leak and then go on to my own speculation in regards to how the death of certain characters will result in their actions from previous seasons. Now, this leak was actually sent to me through the DMs over on Twitter. Speaking of which, make sure you go follow me at Sir_Hunts. But this person mentions how the Battle of Winterfell isn't a battle at all. In fact, it's a bloodbath. The army of the dead attacks from the Crypts. They infiltrate underneath Winterfell, and Bran notices it too late. The Northern army has no time to prepare. Bran doesn't notice the invasion until it's too late, because at the same time, he's speaking with Jon and Sam in private. Bran begins revealing to Jon his true lineage. Sam then hands Jon the same document that Gilly found last season. Jon asks Bran how he knows this, and Sam interrupts and answers, he's the three-eyed raven now. He can see things. Just as Sam finishes answering, Bran goes into a warg and becomes aware of the invasion. He sees hundreds of whites crawling through the crypts. Bran immediately tells Jon of this, and the battle begins. A dragon can be heard screeching in the distance, and the camera cuts to Daenerys. She calls to Drogon in the courtyard, and he lets out a screech, which Daenerys interprets as danger. She begins warning Sansa and Tyrion. Sansa mentions that perhaps your dragons, milady, are just cold. Tyrion responds that dragons do not feel the cold. Just then, an undead giant breaks through the gates of Winterfell. Sorry, I was getting a little bit ahead of myself. Just then, a giant white breaks through the gates of Winterfell, and Drogon then lands, and Daenerys and Sansa mount him alongside Tyrion. They take off into the air and begin to burn the undead. The fire begins destroying Winterfell in the process. Just then, the camera cuts to Arya, who is training during this time. She begins to ask Grey Worm if the dragons always make that noise, and he shakes his head no. The two of them look towards Jaime, and Jaime looks just as concerned as Grey Worm and notices a white running towards them. Arya jumps into action and attempts to stab the white in the throat with needle. The white keeps moving with needle stuck in it. Jaime then beheads it with his Valyrian steel sword, and Arya thanks him. Jaime, Grey Worm, and Arya begin fighting off the whites just as the dead begin surrounding them on all sides. The camera then pans back to Sansa, Daenerys, and Tyrion on the back of Drogon. Sansa attempts to have Daenerys land the dragon so they can find Jon and the others, but she refuses. She tells her that if they land Drogon now, Drogon will surely die and they will follow after. Tyrion tells Sansa that Jon can protect himself, and right as Tyrion says this, Jon is shown in the distance appearing to take command of the walls of Winterfell. Winterfell's soldiers are shown sealing off the crypts. Arya stops one of them and asks them why they are doing this, and the soldier replies that Lord Bran has told them that the undead are coming from below. Arya then realizes what she must do. She tells Jaime and Grey Worm to find Sansa and to keep her safe. Jaime tells her that if she dies, Jon will never forgive him. She responds to Jaime, telling him that she is not his responsibility. They part ways, with Arya leaving Winterfell and slipping into the darkness. Shortly they're followed by Jaime. After a slow motion scene of the Northern Army, the Dothraki, and the Unsullied dying, it's made clear that the heroes are on the losing side of this battle. Rhaegal then appears and begins helping Jon kill the dead at the walls. He burns a white that begins running towards Jon while Jon has his back turned. Jon thanks the dragon, and they continue fighting. It isn't long before the undead surround Jon, Davos, and Kono. Rhaegal then descends onto the walls of Winterfell. As he lands on several undead, Jon realizes that he must mount Rhaegal in order to escape. The camera then switches back to Arya being followed by Jaime. She disappears around a tree. As Jaime picks up pace, Arya then pops up behind him. She demands to know why he followed her, and Jaime explains that he made a promise to Catelyn. Arya says she doesn't care about his promises, and just then they are interrupted by an ominous fog appearing in the background. They begin to hear the snarling of wolves. It is then revealed that Nymeria has been killed and turned into a white. Her eyes glow blue, and she begins approaching Arya slowly. Just then, out of nowhere, Ghost appears and takes out Nymeria by biting her neck and wrestling her to the ground. This gives Arya and Jaime enough time to escape. I'm just gonna sort of stop right there, not by choice, but because I'm waiting on the second part of this leak. I think it's taking so long because the person is taking their time in detailing as much information as they have as possible. Even though, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, most of these leaks are for purely entertainment purposes, this one was still especially a lot of fun. I love the way it pairs certain characters with certain people you didn't really expect them to see. Like, for instance, I never thought that Drogon would be mounted by Tyrion, or Sansa for that matter. Also, I love the fact that it has the undead attacking from the Crypts of Winterfell. We've all thought, from what we know about the Crypts of Winterfell, that this is going to be a safe haven for the Starks when the Battle of Winterfell finally goes down. The fact that this leak has the undead attacking from there is 100% the type of twist they go for in Game of Thrones. As a matter of fact, if it does go down this way, this makes the Crypts of Winterfell teaser make a lot more sense. We see Jon, Arya, and Sansa all walking down there, mourning their dead, and for the most part, the Crypts of Winterfell had always been a sacred, safe place to House Stark, so the fact that the undead would attack from there makes the Crypts of Winterfell teaser more so of a warning. I also like the fact that it has Bran not being aware of this attack because he's preoccupied with other things, such as revealing Jon Snow's true lineage. If this were the case, and he did reveal Jon Snow's true lineage right as the undead attack, then Jon won't really have a chance to properly react to this, which in my opinion would be the best thing, because if Jon really starts letting that information sink in that he's been having sex with his aunt, well, that would likely distract him from the battle at hand. But my thoughts aside, you guys let me know what you think down in the comments section about whether this leak was legitimate, and if you can see the dead, or the undead rather, attacking from the Crypts of Winterfell, surprising everyone. And now, let's discuss what I mentioned at the beginning of this video, which was karma. What goes around comes around, something that a lot of people think is non-existent in these two most previous seasons. I will discuss a few different characters, but I want to start off with Jaime. Jaime is a character who is very, let's just say, controversial. He starts out as someone that everyone can agreeably hate, but then he starts to take turns in seasons 2, 3, 4, and then all the way up to this most previous season that sort of makes him a favorite. In my opinion, me personally, I really started liking Jaime after he's lost his hand. This is what made him the most human and made me feel pity for his character. And I know this can be debated, but I feel like Jaime losing his hand was sort of payback from him making Bran lose his legs. And when you go in deep a little bit, the day Bran was pushed out of the tower was the day that Bran lost the ability to become a knight, which is something that he's always wanted to be ever since he was a little boy. And for Jaime, the day he lost his hand is the same day he lost the ability to be a knight. Now, it's kind of funny because if both of these events didn't happen to both of these characters, then the story wouldn't really be the way we recognize it. Bran has now become the Three-Eyed Raven, is arguably the strongest defense that the good guys have in defeating the Night King, and Jaime would have never agreed to go north and help the Starks if he had not been humanized by them after losing his hand to Vargo Hoat. Now, I know technically that would be Vargo's decision and he was being held captive by the Boltons at that point, but my point is still the same in that Jaime was forever changed in his dealings with the Starks, and Bran was forever changed in his dealing with the Lannisters. When you really think about this, Jaime has almost karmically paid for all of the wrongs that he's done, aside from kingslaying. In my opinion, the only reason why Tommen jumped out of a window was just karma because Bran was pushed out of a window by Jaime. Now, there's definitely going to be people that debate me in the comment section saying that the only reason why Tommen jumped out of the window was because he was mentally unwell and he had just lost the love of his life in Myrcella, who was killed by his mother. But the fact that Jaime lost a son the same way that he almost forced another to lose their son is pretty poetic in my opinion. And then on to what I mentioned earlier, which was that the one thing Jaime hasn't paid for was the killing of King Aerys. Now, arguably the ridicule that he suffered over the years since killing Aerys, the Mad King, was payment enough, but we all know that that's not really how this world works. I predict an ending in which Jaime will flip flip-flop back to Cersei's side. That's one thing that he's been famous for and has been consistent with his character throughout all 7 seasons. Even though in season 7 it seemed somewhat permanent the way that he left Cersei, I still see him going back to her. Just imagine if Cersei's being tortured or being put under trial by Daenerys. You really think Jaime is going to idly sit by and not do anything? I predict that the way that this will go out, and mind you, I always tell you to put your tinfoil caps on my video, but I think a scenario in which Jaime could go out is Cersei's on trial. She's been found guilty. She obviously will demand a trial by combat, but then ultimately the mountain will be defeated. Then Cersei will have to face death. That death, of course, comes in the form of dragon fire. Just as Cersei's about to be melted away to bone and ash, Jaime jumps in the flames and dies with her. I know not a lot of you guys probably won't like that, but that's okay. Just jot down your ideas and speculation down below in the comment section on how you think Jaime will go out, or if he will even die at all this season. The next character that I want to discuss or sort of speculate on how they will end if it's a karma related death is Daenerys. Now, like all of you know that watch my videos regularly, Daenerys is my favorite character, and to be honest, on a scale from 1 to 10 for the chances of her dying in season 8, I'd give it probably like a 2. But this is Game of Thrones, and to me that means one thing: no one is safe. Regardless of whatever your preconceived notions may be about this television show and that they don't kill top build cast members, well, that's all need to be thrown away and thrown into the wind. This is the final season, so we all need to prepare ourselves for pretty much anything. If we're gonna speculate on Daenerys for a karmic death, then we have to look all the way back to season 3 episode 4 when she acquires the Unsullied. Now, there are arguably different points in Daenerys' past throughout all these seasons that may come back to bite her in the ass in the end, but for this I want to specifically focus on this moment. And I don't really feel like I should have to say this, but I'm gonna say it anyway: slavery is bad. Daenerys burning a slave master is one of the greatest things I've ever seen personally on television. The fact that she uses her dragon to do it makes it all the more better. But if you look at it rather from the Game of Thrones perspective, what Daenerys did was very similar to the story of the Rat Cook. Daenerys went and met with the wise masters on the terms that she would be offering one of her dragons for an army of unsullied soldiers. Now, the way that this slave master conducts himself is not professional at all. Remember, he ended up chopping off one of the unsullied soldiers' nipples, so Daenerys' reaction to the unpleasantness of this man is to burn him alive and then use her newly found army that she basically just stole to execute everyone associated with this guy and to free all the slaves. Now, if we look at it with unbiased eyes, Daenerys has to pay for this somehow. In my opinion, this may come in the form of that betrayal from Cersei. Remember, Cersei told her that she was going to help them and send troops up there to go and aid them against the army of the dead. Well, maybe Cersei does send troops, and instead of going to help Daenerys, maybe they go to try and destroy her when she's at her weakest point. Now, I'm a massive fan of Daenerys, so the fact that I've spent this long theorizing about a possible death or betrayal for her for something that she did that was the right thing to do just feels really wrong. So I'm going to move on to the next character, that being Cersei Lannister, as I think we can all agree that she deserves some sort of death in the end. Now, I have long been preaching that Cersei surviving in the end, being the third final twist of her sitting the Iron Throne, when it's all said and done, her winning the Game of Thrones would likely make a lot of heads roll. Although it is an ending that would infuriate me, I would honestly be satisfied with. It is a shocking twist, and we do know that this show was made famous with, like I said in the past 4 videos, the bad guys coming out on top. So Cersei sitting the Iron Throne in the end is not necessarily out of question. It's definitely a possibility that we all need to prepare ourselves for in this final season. In my own personal opinion though, Cersei will likely be poisoned in the end. I could see something going down along the lines of Arya wearing the face of her handmaiden, then offering wine for Cersei, and then Cersei dies in agony alone on the Iron Throne. She's killed a shit crap ton of her enemies using poison, so the fact that Cersei goes out this same way would be pretty poetic in my opinion. But all that aside, you all let me know what you think down below in the comment section about my last couple of speculations on the karmic deaths for season 8, as well as the first half of this video in regards to the leak of the Battle of Winterfell. Or I guess I should really say the destruction of Winterfell. Alright, and with that being said, I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you could please slap a like on this video, as the like goal is going to be 1,420. Also, make sure you're subscribed, and then make sure every notifications turned on, so that way you get alerted every single time I drop a Game of Thrones video throughout this long night. Super special shout out to my Patreon family over on patreon.com/SirHuntsReviews, and a super special shout out to every single person watching this video right now. My name's Mark, and this has been Sir Hunt's Reviews.